Hello and welcome to a special July 4th LinkedIn Live. Happy July 4th, everyone. And also, we had Canada Day on July 1st. So it can be you're still in holiday mode or you're coming off your holiday. And this is a way to maybe have some fun and learn on their holiday by being live with me on this LinkedIn Live today. Thank you for joining me today. We're going to get right into it. Basically, all the LinkedIn lives I think I'm going to do for the next bit of time is going to be around generative AI, and really the question around generative AI and how we see it and how we're going to use it. It's just continuing to evolve every day. There's articles that are being written and I wanted to talk about culture. I talk a lot about organizational culture in my courses on psychological safety when I diagnose and deconstruct a fraud such as Theranos. And we have an upcoming webinar and on demand course on FTX and Sam Bankman Fried. In psychological safety, the term from Dr. Amy Edmondson, the ability to take this interpersonal risk within a team or organization that's really critical for brainstorming, creativity, but also ethical decision making. Um, that's a big part of culture. Does a culture have psychological safety? What do you need to do to cultivate psychological safety to increase it when it's low because it ebbs and flows with different circumstances? And one of the questions on organizational culture right now is can like what is the effect of artificial intelligence on organizational culture? And I'll put this link out there. This question was asked in HBR's IdeaCast. They have a podcast about how generative AI changes organizational culture, and it was an interesting title. I actually thought about what is organizational culture like? What is the effect of it of generative AI on organizational culture? And it was an interesting discussion, and the discussion was between Nitin Mittal and Amy Bernstein, who is the host of the podcast. And Nitin Mittal is part of Deloitte's global AI initiatives, and he's a leader inside of Deloitte for getting Deloitte into the space where they can start to use generative AI and other AI solutions. And what I learned from that podcast, and it does really integrate well with what I already do in terms of organizational culture, um, is that one, this is something that we are going to see as a transformative technology. Probably, and I don't want to be hyperbolic, but it is July 4th, and why not just be hyperbolic and just be in the moment? Probably one of the most significant changes that we've ever seen within an organization and how organizations are going to be affected by it. So it's important to talk about culture. With organizational culture, you want to be proactive rather than reactive. You want to shape the culture of your organization, whether it be a small business, medium business, large business, public company, private company, not for profit. You want to shape your culture and be proactive. And if you're reactive to artificial intelligence and generative AI, and not in the FOMO way, I have to balance this conversation with the fear of missing out, which is not a good feeling, one of anxiety and panic, and kind of makes you either feel like you're missing out and you're frozen, or you just start doing things without really having a plan. And we want to acknowledge FOMO exists with generative AI, but also we want to understand what are the right steps to start to understand how to integrate generative AI into your culture. And the conversation that Amy Bernstein and Mithil had was really interesting. And I thought it was interesting in a few ways. One, Nitin, who is a leader in generative AI, really feels this is fundamentally something that's going to change the way in which we work, that the old ways of doing things, in terms of the way in which we worked with each other and worked with intelligence, artificial intelligence, is going to, if not already, has fundamentally changed. And without invoking FOMO, there needs to be an organizational initiative to start to think about these things. And what I learned from that discussion in terms of culture, and what I'll overlay with my own expertise, my own analysis with psychological safety. First, there's two paths to this. Is one is just to kind of play around with ChatGPT and other generative AI software, and have a IT team or a few people just play around and just kind of have it off to the side, saying, yeah, we were touching on it right now, but we're going to continue our business as usual. And Nitin thought this was not the best approach. In fact, not a good approach for any size organization to do right now. The better approach is a safe approach, which is to look at this as a technology that's not just IT or not just one or two people playing with it, but an organizational discussion, like from the bottom up. And that's where a lot of this generative AI change is happening. It's actually happening not from the top down. The top down executives, boards, management, they're listening to the same podcast. They're reading everything about generative AI. They're playing potentially with ChatGPT and other generative AI solutions. But it's the bottom up that are really feeling some of the anxiety around this, because is their skill set going to be dated? And those at the lower sort of ground level of the organization are feeling, what do I need to do right now? Is my organization supporting me? Am I going to be reskilled, retooled? And the way Nitin Mittal sort of looked at this was that you need an organizational culture that is going to have a discussion, top down, bottom up, with what generative AI is, and to really be collaborative and brainstorm how people might be affected, whether individuals need to be reskilled, where there is a SWOT analysis. And this is bringing on another individual that was on that podcast, Tessa Neely, who discussed the importance of making sure that this is a two-way conversation, that everyone is sort of involved. But what does this really mean for the organization? Have a SWOT analysis, a strengths, weakness, opportunities, and threats analysis, and be proactive. The challenge of not being proactive with generative AI is that culturally, things will be reactive. Right now, your organizational culture is being affected by generative AI in some ways. Maybe your organization isn't doing anything with it, but your employees, just like me, like when I think about my business, designing, delivering, continuing professional development, and what I have on slate for 2023 and 2024 in terms of my work and the things I design, I'm beginning to say, this generative AI can just keep going as usual, right? And again, I'm trying to not suggest FOMO. I'm trying to think a real rational approach to this. I can just keep on going forward with my plans as they were and just let generative AI sort of see where that goes. But I mean, a lot of the tea leaves here are indicating that we need to be proactive, not necessarily installing some sort of chat GPT solution, not necessarily saying, hey, everyone, panic. We're in a generative AI world, but to start having psychologically safe conversations around our organizational strategy, the people that work for us within our organization, and the skills that they have, and what is coming down the pipeline, so that we can be proactive. Because when you're reactive to a technology, part of it is that if a certain type of technology, if when you're reactive, that might mean that you're just a little bit later to come to the technology, you lose a little bit of efficiency. But with generative AI, there's a real cost to this right now, which is the cultural cost, that people understand that their job skills, the way in which they interact with each other, might fundamentally, probably will fundamentally change. And Nitin put it in a really interesting way to me. I thought it was really interesting the way he discussed it, that fundamentally the way in which we look at our organizations is that we work with people, we work with other individuals with our organization, we collaborate with them to build products, to complete projects, to work together. We don't see artificial intelligence or generative AI as a partner in this. And generally, we don't see technology as a partner in our discourse, in our creativity, and our problem solving. And what Nitin said is that that's the way we should start thinking about this generative AI. We should start seeing generative AI. Again, generative AI is not strong AI. I've talked about this on other podcasts, but we should start seeing them as part, like almost like a colleague, that are going to help us with business decisions, that are going to help us with strategy, that are going to help us potentially with other types of work that we would normally have gone to a team or another person. We might actually be working with artificial intelligence, or as he put it, intelligent machines. And that's a fundamental change to the way in which we see collaboration and trust. We're going to have to not just trust people, we're going to also have to trust the software that we're going to work with. And that's pretty heavy. I think that's a real change. And so, one of the things that they talked about with organizational culture is, and I'll phrase it in my own way, is to have a psychologically safe culture where people can start talking about what they feel. The SWOT analysis is around generative AI and their job skills and their skill set, and how their skill set matches up to what generative AI could or may do in the future. And listen, I'm having the same conversation internally with my business, right? I deliver continuing professional development courses. Where is the part that generative AI and my business can work together? Where are the parts that are redundant for what I do and what generative AI might do better? And again, it's done with some optimism, some hope that generative AI will actually be better for our organizational culture, but it's also done with some realism that we can't suggest that this is just a fad, and it's going away. This is real change that's happening. So a strong, resilient organizational culture with this type of impactful technological change is one that has psychologically safe discussions, one that builds trust, and one that really listens to their employees. I mean, that's part of psychological safety, but their employees, maybe voicing their concern, but also where they see the skill sets that they have aligning to maybe what generative AI might do, and where we can help our employees and retrain them, retool them, give them more support in what they might need to do with generative AI. And also, talking about ethical decision making, there's a lot of ethical decision points that need to go into the data inputs that we put into generative AI solutions and also the outputs, and to help guide our employees to make sure that they make ethically right decisions. So organizational culture is key. If you have a organizational culture that is psychologically unsafe, or one that isn't, it's just not great right now, not trusting, not collaborative, from the lower levels of management all the way to management, to the board of directors, to governance, it's going to be a difficult adaptation to generative AI. So I think, to be proactive right now, one of the things you want to do if you're a leader in your organization, and you can even sidebar the generative AI conversation, is to just do a health check on your organizational culture. Your organizational culture needs to be primed for this change. It needs to be in a place where people are talking to each other. There's trust, there's discourse, and to understand where it is right now, given that we might want to do what Nitin said, and have real integrative conversational spaces for generative AI and what people need and how they feel throughout the organization, and not just silo it into one part of the IT department, which he thinks is what he sees in larger organizations that aren't doing a great job understanding the impact of generative AI. Is just to say, give it to your IT, let them workshop a couple things, put them in a data analytic team, and that's being done with check, check, check. And he doesn't think that's great. That's not what Deloitte's doing. And I think we can scale down from a company as large as Deloitte and look at our own smaller businesses, including myself. I think part of my journey with LinkedIn Live going forward is I'm going to kind of journalize my own my own path with generative AI. And this is just an idea that I'm telling you now, that going forward with LinkedIn Live, I'm going to start showing you how I'm trying to test out generative AI, ChatGPT, and others, how I see the strengths, weaknesses, and opportunities of my business, what I'm going to do to try to make things in a place where I'm not doing just fear of missing out things. I'm not just panicking, and I'm going to do one or two ChatGPT uh, queries a day for no reason other than to say I'm using ChatGPT. That's not what I'm saying. That I'm going to start journalizing this, and I think that's going to be the LinkedIn Lives going forward. Using myself as a test case for you, for the pleasure of the two or three of you that are out there, to say, what is the best way to approach this as someone who wants to embrace change but not fear it, and also understanding that there's going to be parts of the organization that might have to change, things that you're very comfortable with that you don't want to change. That's the thing about technology and other external factors, that they force change, and it's tough at the beginning, and it will be for me, but hopefully in the long run it'll be for the best. And so I'm going to journalize that, and it's going to be sort of a cathartic experience for me as I do that, with each LinkedIn Live forward, going forward, is my journey as to what I'm trying to do to understand generative AI's impact on my business, understand how I can use it, maybe how I should not use it, where I should use it, where I should not use it. And again, for my business, it's very specific. It's continuing professional development courses across Canada and the United States, but it's still a place where need to start asking these questions and having a thought. Even if it's in the end, I say, you know what, I can just keep doing what I'm doing, and generative AI can help me in the fringes. But to really have that conversation in a non-FOMO way, like FOMO, fear of missing out, always operates in the background. You can't completely eliminate it. But yeah, I think it's absolutely important. I'm going to put that HBR link. I thought it was a really good podcast, that episode on on LinkedIn. If there's any comments or questions, please let me know. I don't want to make this a long stream today because I know it's July 4th in the US and it's coming off Canada Day, so some people are still enjoying their holidays. So I wanted to make this short and just talk about how AI. I do apologize for starting a little bit later. Just we had some technical difficulties, but we got it started anyway. So I'm going to end that and say happy 4th of July, happy Canada Day to all those that are out there. And we'll start with a journalization, LinkedIn live streaming of journal entry one. We'll put that up there of how I'm going to start to try to integrate artificial intelligence and generative AI into my business, or at least the process to that. Anyway, thanks for watching. Have a great rest of your week. If you're having a short week, have a great maybe vacation week or time off. Always good to take time off and enjoy. Hopefully, what is good weather. I'm watching Wimbledon. It's big tennis fan. The rain is not making it so good, but wherever you are, hopefully you're enjoying your time with your friends and family. And until the next time, thanks everyone.